94 of the Standing Committee on International Trade. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the standing orders, and therefore members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. I need to make a few comments for the benefit of the witnesses and members. Please wait until I recognize you by name before speaking. For those online, please mute yourself when you are not speaking. For interpretation online, you have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. For those in the room, you can use the earpiece and select the desired channel. I ask all participants to be careful when handling the earpieces in order to prevent feedback, which can be extremely harmful to our interpreters and cause serious injuries. Please speak only into the microphone your headset is plugged into, and place earbuds away from the microphone when they are not in use. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. For members in the room, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand. For members on Zoom, please use your raise hand function. The clerk and I will manage to speak in order as best we can, and we appreciate your patience and understanding. Any technical issues arise, please inform us immediately. We may need to suspend to ensure interpretation is properly restored and before resuming proceedings. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on Tuesday, February 6, 2024, the committee is continuing its study of free trade negotiations between Canada and Ecuador. We have with us today the Department of Employment and Social Development, Pierre Bouchard, Director, Bilateral and Regional Labor Affairs, and from the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development, His Excellency Stephen Potter, Ambassador of Canada to Ecuador, Doug Forsyth, Director General, Market Access, Dean Foster, Director, Trade Policy and Negotiations, Ruben East, Deputy Director, Investment Trade Policy. Before I open up the floor for comments and remarks, His Excellency, the Ambassador of Canada to Ecuador, does not have a proper headset, so he will not be able to participate today. Speaking particularly with Mr. Cannings, who would very much like to have the ambassador's participation. We wonder if it's possible, Ambassador, you could listen in on the discussion this afternoon. You would not be able to comment back. But if you would like to appear, for us to make arrangements for you to appear at another occasion when you would have the appropriate headset on, we could also make that arrangement. What would the wishes of the committee? Would we invite the ambassador to come back at another meeting when we have the appropriate headset on? Mr. Cannings is saying yes. Okay. Sure, we have one more meeting. Yes. Yeah, we do. Absolutely. All right, Ambassador, please stay on the line if you'd like to hear the comments and discussion this afternoon. And that means you'll be extra prepared when you come back to the next committee meeting. Great. Thank you very much. All right, welcome to you all. We will start with opening remarks. Mr. Forsyth, nice to see you back at our committee again. You make the opening statement for up to 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it is nice to be back and to see all the committee members as well. I'm pleased to be here today to address this committee and welcome your study on the proposed Canada-Ecuador Free Trade Agreement negotiations. Votre étude arrive à point nommé, car les experts commerciaux...
Your study is timely, as the government trade experts responsible for the various areas of the FTA are currently engaged in policy development work with a view to proposing chapters for the planned negotiations. Our team is also finalizing work on the high-level negotiating objectives, which should be presented to Parliament by the end of the month, so that you can provide your comments before negotiations begin. Let me now turn to the background to the possible launch of these negotiations.
$116 billion US, Ecuador's GDP represents roughly 3% of South America's gross domestic product. It is the only country on the Pacific coast of South America that Canada does not presently have a free trade agreement with, given that one or more such agreements are in force with Chile, Peru, Colombia, and Panama. Ecuador's current government, under President Daniel Noboa, is among the most favorable to trade liberalization in the region. It also supports inclusive trade provisions in areas such as trade and gender, trade and indigenous peoples, as well as provisions on labor and the environment. It It is notable that Ecuador is like-minded with Canada on issues such as human rights, the war in Ukraine, and the centrality of the international rules-based order. It sees an FTA's contribution to expanded economic prosperity as a means to advance its domestic, social, and security policies. As you may be aware, Canada and Ecuador's trade officials undertook exploratory discussions through much of 2023 prior to taking a mutual decision to proceed towards the launch of negotiations. The exploratory discussions revealed a broad alignment in terms of approach and a strong willingness on both sides to show flexibility and advance negotiations quickly. In addition, both sides intend to carry out the negotiations in a largely virtual format with minimal need for physical travel so as to approach the negotiations in a cost and time-efficient manner. Canada's objective is to negotiate a high-standard, ambitious trade agreement with Ecuador. We will seek an agreement that provides Canadian firms with preferential access to the Ecuadorian market, as well as increased transparency and certainty for Canadian service providers and investors. We will seek an agreement that reflects Canada's latest approaches, including in areas such as digital trade, inclusive trade, responsible business conduct, environment, and labor. We will seek an agreement that ensures that the benefits are widely shared, including with traditionally underrepresented groups such as women, Indigenous peoples, and small, medium-sized enterprises. Nous savons que cet accord bénéficie déjà d'un soutien.
We know that there is already support for this agreement. As part of the consultation process, we received favorable comments from stakeholders in the agricultural and mining sectors, among others. We also heard from a number of provinces and territories, all of which supported the initiative as a means of creating greater economic opportunities for Canadians and forging closer trade relations with Ecuador. In addition, stakeholders have expressed concerns about certain provisions, such as investment. And we are still considering how best to respond to these comments through the policy work underway on our various FTA chapters and through initiatives that are outside the agreement.
And consider your recommendations once you have completed your study. In terms of economic impact, I will begin by noting that bilateral merchandise trade between Canada and Ecuador has been growing by 11% a year on average since 2010, reaching $1.3 billion in 2022. Nearly 40% of Canada's exports to Ecuador and nearly 90% of Canada's current imports from Ecuador are already duty-free. Preliminary analysis by the Chief Economist's Office here at Global Affairs Canada has estimated that an FTA between Canada and Ecuador would generate modest but positive economic benefits for both countries. Canadian export gains are predicted in a wide variety of areas, such as wheat, pulses, and manufactured goods, as well as in services trade. Overall, preliminary estimates suggest that under an ambitious trade agreement, Canada's GDP could increase by about $83 million by 2030, while Ecuador's GDP could increase by approximately $49.3 million over the same time frame. A particular area of interest as we head into negotiations relates to investment. As of 2022, Canada had the largest stock of foreign direct investment in Ecuador of any country at $2.6 billion, led by investments in the mining sector. Enforcement of investment chapter obligations through investor-state dispute settlement, or ISDS, is a key interest for Canadian industry stakeholders. In 2017, under a previous government, Ecuador notified its intentions to terminate its 1997 FIPA, or Foreign Investment Protection Agreement, with Canada. Termination became effective in 2018, although existing investments continued to be protected until 2033. However, we note that a recent ruling by Ecuador's Constitutional Court has found the inclusion of an ISDS mechanism in Ecuador's FTA with Costa Rica unconstitutional. Deliberations in Ecuador are ongoing regarding whether there are options that would allow it to move forward under certain conditions, and this process will remain ongoing early in the months of our FTA negotiations. Officials will explore options in this regard with Ecuador once negotiations begin, and we intend to base our position on Canada's latest investment agreement model, which includes clarifying that the parties maintain their right to regulate and preserve required policy flexibility in areas such as the environment, health, safety, Indigenous rights, gender equality, and cultural diversity. Dans l'ensemble et en conclusion, Affaires mondiales Canada.
Overall, and in conclusion, Global Affairs Canada and the other departments involved in our trade policy consider that a free trade agreement between Canada and Ecuador would be economically beneficial and provide a means of supporting a like-minded and like-valued government in the region.
Look forward to reviewing the results of your work once your study has been completed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Forsyth. Mr. Baldinelli for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to thank the witnesses for being with us today. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. My first question is, we had a previous hearing just the other day, and one of the witnesses from Cereals Canada mentioned that they sense the new Canada-Ecuador Free Trade Agreement will be focused on trying to reinforce the existing market share Canada has in Ecuador rather than focusing on growth. And I was just wondering if you could comment on that.
For the question, Madam Chair, I think the opportunities that exist under the FTA negotiations with Ecuador are through our economic model show that there are opportunities within the agriculture space for sure. I think within the we have noted that wheat is a key export interest of ours and a key area where I think we'll be able to benefit. And I would add pulses to that as well. So I think that there is an excellent opportunity to grow our exports in that marketplace. Pardon me. And then in addition, we have Ecuador has free trade agreements with a couple of a couple of our competitors, including European Union and China, and any of the tariff advantages that they have in that marketplace. I think we will be able to negotiate something similar so that we will be on equal footing with our competitors.
Thank you, Mr. Forsyth. I just want to go on. And like in December 2023, the minister tabled a notice of intent to negotiate. And following that, there were consultations that flowed from that, seeking input from stakeholder communities, provinces, and so on. And could you tell us, or can you table with us, like how many provinces and territories, non-governmental organizations, and individuals, how many took part?
As you note, we did send out a broad-based consultation request through the Canada Gazette for input on the FTA. So I think most provinces responded with their interest, either directly written or verbally. We have a consultation mechanism through a Canada CIIT group, we call it, where we regularly discuss FTAs, and where a number of provinces also indicated their interest. Key exporting associations, such as, again, mostly agriculture, but mining as well, also indicated their interest. And we did receive a number of letters and emails from NGOs as well. Yes.
Mr. Forsyth, as this is kind of like a pre-study by parliamentarians on an upcoming agreement that will be, with a notice to be tabled, is it possible? Are those documents public? Can they be shared with the committee for its own review as we're undertaking this study?
The inputs of others, you mean?
Yes, during your consultation.
They're not public, no. I think we do publish a summary from time to time.
Can we take a copy of that summary then?
We haven't put it together as of yet, but
when
I don't know if we will have it done in time for you to complete your study.
Oh, okay.
Depending on the time.
Now, can you also then provide the committee with any documents related to your internal analysis on the expected benefits to Canadian trade and for exporters with Ecuador under any future free trade agreement?
I think we have a summary document that we could provide on that.
Thank you. There's multiple other trade discussions taking place, such as Canada and the Pacific Alliance, whom Ecuador is also a candidate to join. Can you comment on the Pacific Alliance negotiation, as it's been some time since we've heard about this? GAC states that 8 rounds